I think in a CRT space, there's definitely some overlap. We work with a full spectrum of teachers, from your brand new graduates to your people on maternity leave to your people that are looking for a change and are just doing CRT between contracts. So it's really about understanding exactly what they're looking for. And if that is a lower years speciality and only working from prep to 2, then that's what we find them. If it is an upper years, then that's fabulous. If they will do 1 day of PE a week, but not more than that, then it's about understanding those preferences and really taking them into account when you're trying to build that relationship. And also for lots of people, they are doing CRT as a means to an end. So they are really wanting to explore local schools that they potentially might want to get a contract in down the track and make those relationships. So I think from us, they really need us to understand exactly what their long-term goal is so that we can put them in situations and give them the experience that maybe they want to develop to help them reach that longer-term goal, so they can be with us and then move on if that's what their goal is.
Yeah, so early childhood, it's a funny industry, and a lot of our educators are family people, and that's what they do outside of their jobs. But the timings with early childhood can be quite difficult. So fully really understanding their situations and drop off times and pick up times is quite key for us to build relationships, because early childhood runs from 6:30 to 6:30 a.m. to 6:30 p.m. So you can imagine a drop off being at 8:30 at school and pick up at 3:30. It's not going to work all the time. So fully understanding who that's going to affect and how we can help. Another key element is their training, their certificates. So we do have 3 levels: certificate 3, diploma, and a teacher. So putting a teacher in a cert 3 shift, once is probably fine, but consistently, obviously, can tend to cause issues. So having those conversations around what they're trying to engage, what they're trying to learn, what they're trying to grow in, which area, whether it's to become a room leader as well, or a director in the future, or if they're just looking for casual work and not stress about what type they're getting. So understanding that's really important. Also, the type of settings we're putting them in. So community-based, council run, all those type of things, because each individual person's going to have their own ethos and what they're looking for. They're going to have their comfortability levels going to vary in different settings. So definitely, once we know that and what we know that's the type of setting they're looking for, we can push to that a little bit more. So understanding that's hugely important.
I feel within, I suppose, the perm space, we tend to break down our educators into that sort of passive or active category. I think often just the case with the passive educator is really sort of just maintaining that level of communication, understanding what it is that they're looking for, whether that, it could just be a case of, look, I want one school and I'm not in a position to move at the moment, but it might be 2 years down the track, and I suppose that's totally fine. It's having that understanding and then maintaining that level of communication and building that relationship until that person's really ready to make that move. For that active educator, I suppose that level of communication is then ramped up again. It's being able to keep them consistently in the loop as to what's happening, opportunities that are available, and being able to, I suppose, provide those consistent updates and that consistent level of feedback as well to support in that move and finding them that new role. I think that level of reassurance is probably something that's quite imperative as well, whether they are a passive or an active educator. It's, I suppose, making sure that they feel comfortable in making that move, in potentially looking at a school and looking at a role, and I suppose it builds that confidence in us, and it builds that confidence in them to really have a go.
Yeah, well, there are a number of things, but I think one of the main ones is honesty. And when an educator comes in and says, I only want this and I only want that, and if you are saying, yep, 100%, I can give you that, no worries at all, knowing that you might not be able to fully give them what they are after, that's only going to have a negative impact on the relationship straight off the bat. And we see it a lot where it's easy to tell an educator, yeah, we'll get you a school within 5 minutes of your house. That's no worries at all. Where instead of going, we do have schools within 5 minutes of you, absolutely, but to begin with, you may have to travel 25, 30, 40 minutes until we can get you a position at that school or service. So I think being honest as much as possible and having those open conversations, and not doing that can really deteriorate a relationship quite quickly. And so I have a good example of an educator I worked with a couple of years ago in London. She was a phenomenal worker, and I was confident I was going to be able to place her pretty quickly, and sold her the dream. Yep, we'll get you a job pretty much straight away for a good rate of pay, pretty local to you. And unfortunately, we didn't have anything at that time come through that was suited for her. So even though if we did have a job come through, she definitely would have gotten it. But we just had nothing come through for that period. So, unfortunately, I didn't prepare her for that case, and the relationship did have a bit of a breakdown, and it took a long time to build back up again, and was never really the same. Because I hadn't prepared her and been honest and sold the negatives of what could have happened, the relationship broke down quite quickly. So I think being honest and upfront as much as possible is definitely a key to that.
Yeah, I definitely agree with Kale. I think being transparent from the very beginning is super important. I think we also can cause relationship breakdowns or influence them when we're trying to sell an educator into something that they don't necessarily want, especially if they've been very clear that that's not what they are wanting. And it could be, as Kale said, something as simple as they've told you they'll travel 30 minutes and you offer them a shift that's 45 minutes away, and they say, but I told you I don't want that. Why are you offering it to me? And once is fine. And sometimes you can convince them, but then, if you keep doing it again and again, they just think, well, you're clearly not listening to me, so why am I bothering? And also another example is when you get a note written on a booking that says, this is a tough class, I need someone that's going to be able to handle it, and you're potentially know they're not going to be the best fit for that booking, but you do it anyway, and you've set them up for failure, and that's not going to benefit anyone. And in the end, the educator is not going to feel supported and like you actually care about the relationship that you have with them, because you've essentially set them up for failure in that day. So that's definitely being transparent and taking on board what they're saying are super important to maintain the relationship.
I think the three things that I sort of put down were, those communication breakdowns, appearing insincere or disingenuous with our educators. I think probably the thing that I would touch on from that perm side of things is, I suppose, that providing potentially incorrect information to an educator, where that, I suppose, has the potential to really sort of erode, I suppose, our credibility, and also sort of dent their confidence in our ability and our knowledge as well. So I think from that side of things, it's really important that we know our stuff and we know what we're providing to those educators as well.
I don't think there's any one thing, two things, three things that educators are going to want from you. There's going to be a multitude depending on the person, depending on the time of the year. Lots of things are going to affect what an educator is going to want from you. So I think identifying that at the start with the educator and trying to figure out, right, well, this is what you've asked for, this is what I'll be able to do, and then working together to try and hit those targets, I guess. So it's really important to figure out what that person wants, and that might be someone wants flexible hours and be able to chop and change where they need. Another educator is going to want 5 days of work as much as possible when they can. Some are going to want to be pre-booked, some are going to want morning of. So it's just identifying that and trying to figure out what it is that exact person wants and working with them to hit those as much as possible.
Yeah, I think Kayle's exactly right. It does vary from person to person. I think the best thing to do in that regard is they're looking for clear communication. So just touching on exactly what they want, what they're looking for and how we can best support them in that. And then further to that, I think they really need to know that we do have their best interests at heart and that you are really trying to get them what they want and support them to achieve their goals and take into account whatever their personal situation is. So it does really vary, but I think they need to know that you are in their corner and that you are, batting for them so that they can have success in their work with us.
From the permanent side of things, I'd probably back up with what Blair and Kayle have said as well. I think it's that level of support, whether, they're a passive educator who's, only wants one school and that might be, a job coming up in 2 years' time, or whether that's an active educator who's ready to make that move. I think that support comes in a few different ways, whether it's that career guidance, how to, get into the market, how to take that next step. But also I think just, that support and that reassurance in what we're doing and what we're trying to achieve for them and help them achieve as well.
Yeah, there are definitely been a few. There's actually one I've just recently developed actually that sort of blown me away, and a few things have happened that I've not thought about really in my past. So a new educator I've just brought on recently sent out for her first day on the week just gone, but hadn't heard much from her for the past week. Was getting a bit worried, gave her a call, finally got through to her, and she said, look, I'm actually really stressed about calling and speaking to you because I don't want to disappoint you, but I've really struggled taking on this casual role because I'm an organized person and I like to be, I don't like being called in the morning to be told where I'm going and not knowing and not being planned or not sure if I would be getting work. And while we had covered a lot of this stuff, she almost cried on the phone, but she, once we were able to have this conversation, she was so thankful that we're not forcing her to work or anything in that. And we actually had a really amazing conversation. She's actually since referred 2 friends to me, which was an amazing outcome for us. But understanding that side and being able to be there for her and have an open and honest conversation, and her not stressing or worrying about what she's going to do in the future, or be able to give her some contacts that she can go out and speak to and maybe get a more something more in line with what she's looking for, she was hugely grateful for. So that's probably a relationship I'd reflect on, or I've been reflecting on quite a lot in the last couple of days, because it's really shown me a side of this role I might not have thought about previously. And she's been amazing, keeping in contact now and telling me what she's up to, and as I said, referred to people, which is priceless in this industry. So that's probably one I'm really grateful for at the moment.
I think we're lucky enough in this company to work with so many amazing educators and clients and have so many fantastic relationships. One that stands out to me particularly is with one of my educators named Evelyn. Evelyn is just a breath of fresh air. She's the most positive person you'll ever come across, and she's so delightful to work with. She's a personal trainer for 3 days a week, and she allocates 2 days a week to us to give her CRT work for, as she just loves being in the classroom and working with children. If ever you're having a down day, you can call Evelyn, and she is just so great to chat to, and she tells you all her amazing experiences, and she's just incredibly positive. And on the flip side, she's also really great in terms of work as well. She'll take anything that we throw at her. Because we have such a strong relationship, I know that whatever I call her with, she's more than happy to accept and go in there and give it her absolute best shot. And I actually had a conversation with her last week, and she told me she's bought a block of land down in the Mornington Peninsula, which means she technically won't fall into my area in the east anymore. So I was very sad that I was going to have to pass Evelyn across to somebody else. And she said, "Oh no, Blair, it's completely fine. I'm more than happy to keep traveling to the east. I love the team here. I love working for ANZUK as a whole. I really want to continue the relationship that we have." So she's a massive advocate for us, and she's always passing referrals on, and she now participates in podcasts, and it's come full circle. So it's definitely very much a two-way relationship that we have.
I suppose speaking from my side in the perm team, I think the most rewarding relationships I've found, I think, are the ones where you persevere together. And I suppose you might suffer a few setbacks along the way, but I suppose to get that final positive result at the end is just fantastic. I think I've had one educator recently who I met with a bit over 12 months ago when I sort of first started in the permanent team. And I suppose straight after meeting her, we were pretty fortunate that she got booked in for 2 interviews in 2 of Sydney's top independent schools. And unfortunately, in both those positions, she ran second. And then I suppose we picked up the conversation again with her at the start of the year, I suppose understanding what her preferences were, what her plans were, and sort of for looking towards 2021, we started to get her out to a few different schools. And I suppose quite early on, we weren't having the success that we were hoping for, and she was getting quite disappointed with it. So it was, a case of building up that confidence, reassuring her that, there was a positive result coming. We just, needed to stick at it. And we managed to place her about a month ago. And she's really excited. She's got a new job at one of Sydney's top independent schools. So it's just, I suppose, on the back of that, whilst you might have those setbacks, it's that perseverance at the end of the day.